Okay, so today, run around here to the front. Today I'm going to do my River Run Finish Line kit for a video tutorial. And this is the way the kit will come. So this is the cover. This one has a pattern in it. Now, if you buy a pattern somewhere else and you just need the kit and you already have the pattern, you are able to buy a kit without a pattern on my website. And most stores would be pretty happy to pull the pattern from you if you already have one, but you need a pattern, and you'll see why as we get going on the tutorial. So you want to make sure you have a pattern. You don't need a pattern if you repeat the kit and you want to make a second one. It's another reason you might want to buy a kit without a pattern, but you do need a pattern. So make sure when you buy your kit, if it's the first time, that you get a kit with pattern. And then this is the way the back of the kit looks. So you have all your different pieces here. On this one, you can see all the different colors in it. Sometimes some of my kits that have lots of little pieces, you might not see everything on the back because I'll tuck some of them underneath, but I try to make them look pretty. So anyhow, this is the way the back looks. And I've got one that I've already kind of taken apart and gotten ready for the tutorial. So what we're going to do today is we're going to put all of the applique portion together, which is the whole center here. I'm not going to do borders and things like that. That's just kind of your basic sewing and something that if people need help with, you've got lots of quilters around the country. Most all of your quilt shops are very happy to help people if you have questions with some of the basics of like piecing borders and things like that. Okay, so let's get into the applique portion of this. So I've taken my pattern and I've got another one here. Try to get this so it's not in the way. Ooh, so we can see. Hold on, it's a little tricky when I'm doing the tutorial because I don't want, let's see if I can get this to roll up. No, yes, maybe. I'll find something to hold it down. Can I hold it down? Stick some tape in there. Let's see if that'll work. Okay, we'll try to keep that going. Okay, so I've opened up my pattern. This is the inside of the pattern, and oh shoot, now that I rolled it up, I'm gonna have to unroll it for you. So you're gonna see inside your pattern, you have your layout guide, you have all your applique pieces. So the first thing that I usually do when it comes to doing your appliques is I take all those pieces, and I've got them all over here, and I label everything. So inside your kit, you have, I'll pull this out here, you have your pattern, and then you have this other little paper here that is about the laser cut pre-kit. So it will tell you on the front, like all of your appliques have been pre-washed, what it includes, the kit appliques, background fabrics, borders, binding. It does say patterns are sold separately on this. So if you see this and no pattern on the front, you need to get the pattern. But most of the time, you'll have a pattern covering that. But if you only see this part and it says pattern sold separately and the pattern's not in there, you make sure you get a pattern. Okay, so on the back, it will tell you about the pre-cut kits and that I'm using Light Steam-A-Seam 2 as my permanent fusible bond, that I have some step-by-step instructions on my tips page on my Wildfire Designs. Those are just photos going through all the different steps. But of course, you can watch this video too. All the fabrics have been pre-washed. Bindings, backgrounds, borders have not been pre-washed. So I very highly recommend you do that. That is always step one of all my patterns. And if you see here, very first opening the pattern, step one, pre-wash all fabrics to block and remove excess dye. Batiks have a lot of excess dye in them, especially solid batiks, and you want to run them through your sink, even hot water in the sink, and then throw them in the dryer to let them shrink up, or run them through a wash cycle, just even a quick one. But you don't even necessarily need soap. You just need to rinse them to rinse out that extra dye, because if you don't, you do run the risk that when you go to steam and fuse everything, some of these colors could bleed on you, and they could bleed on the appliques next to them or onto their background. And you don't want to have done all this work and then have it get ruined by some bleed. And it's happened to me too. So that's one of the reasons I always tell people, please, 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 please pre-wash your fabrics or pre-rinse your fabrics. And then about using the appliques. If the sheets have been folded, which in this one, nothing's been folded, but if you did have an applique pack where maybe this was folded in half, you can gently press it out on low heat with your iron. We don't have to do that on any of these. Nothing's been Nothing's been pre-folded. And then it says label each shape using a pencil comparing shapes to the tracing sheet. So that's what I'm doing here. So just move this out of the way. So like for instance, this piece right here, this red, I've got it right here. B3, B3, A4, A4, A1, over here, A1, B7, B7. And I say that I typically keep them in the same arrangement unless it's something where you can obviously tell something's been moved, or I did it to maybe make it fit better within a square or rectangle. This one here, flip it over, B8, B8. A3, A3, B1, B1, etc. And it goes on. And you want to do that with all your pieces. So you're labeling everything first. It makes it so much faster when you go to arrange that you know what's what. And so you can look for your pieces that you need next. So I've already done all of that. And then some of my patterns, only actually really one or two of my kits, I actually have some little arrows that will tell you which way's up. That's usually on ones that are like circle shapes, like blueberries is the one that I did that because the berries are all round and it's kind of hard to know for sure which one's which. So I put that so you know which way's up. And if I was going up, it would be the way that the writing is up. So this would be up. Okay. Once all appliques have been labeled, they can be easily removed from the pre-cut sheet by gently pressing against the edges, pop them out. If any threads catch, use thread scissors to snip the appliques free. And now you're ready to arrange on your pattern. That reminded me, I forgot my thread scissors. Got them. Okay, so that is what you're going to do before you get going. Now, as I mentioned, we're not going to do the sewing, but I am going to go through some of the steps. So with my instructions, we pre-wash the fabrics to remove and block excess dye. So that's going to be your backgrounds, borders, binding, all of those things that are not pre-cut appliques. The pre-cut appliques have already been pre-washed. I've already done that for you so that you don't have to worry about them bleeding on you. Then you're going to cut the following selvage to salvage. Your water background. This is your water background. I've got mine cut. Here it is. It is cut 10 inches by 19.5. And this is what we're going to do all of our arrangement on for the center. If you're doing an individual wall hanging, I also have you go ahead and you can cut your outer borders. If you're doing the big group one, which this one can be combined, and I'll see if I can get it up here. So it can be combined where you have, here's this one here, and it comes with there are 5 other patterns that can be combined to make it into one large group. So if you're doing that, you don't have to cut your borders. And if you're doing that, I have a kit that is of the entire group instead of just this one, which is an individual wall hanging. So it comes with all the borders and binding for doing it as an individual. And then we want to trace all the appliques. We don't need to trace them. You've got a laser kit. They're already cut. You don't need to do that part. So skip down to number 4. Lay the applique pressing sheet onto the layout guide and prearrange salmon A and B. So we're going to jump in. What is an applique pressing sheet? Well, I'll show you. This is my applique pressing sheet, and it is like a Teflon sheet, and they have them by different brands, different names. This is the one that I have had for like 20 something years. It's a 13 by 17 size. It's a really great size for starting with. You can get them at almost any of the craft stores. If you look up applique pressing sheet, you'll probably find it online. And there are, like I said, a few different brands. This is one that I've used for a long time. They have an 18 by 20 size, which if you get into doing a lot of my designs, that's a really nice size because some of them are larger. This one works really great for the one we're doing today. So I'm just going to use this, but this is a great size to start with, and they're around $20, $25. But if you get into doing these sort of things, you are going to use them a lot. So we're going to do our arrangement here. Trying to see if I can get this to just stand up. Nope. On here. So we're going to arrange salmon A and salmon B. Now the salmon are going to be arranged in numerical order. So we're going to go A1, A2, A3, all the way through. I think A looks like 14 is the final one. And then we're going to do B. So all of A first, then B. And we're actually going to arrange them here on this pressing sheet because we're going to end up fusing them all as one big group of the 2 salmon to then arrange onto the background. So the other thing, you get into doing these, you might want to invest in a light table. Now you can make your own light table, which I did for many years. I had a light table that was, let's see if I can find something else to put in there. Something else heavy that will stay in there. Okay. For many, many years, I just used a lamp under a glass table. That works great. You can even tape this up to a window and use the light from outside for your light. But you'll find that it is much easier to see the lines and even your numbers with a light table or some sort of light behind it than if you try to do this without one. So just to show you, I'm going to lay this down here. My sheet's a little dirty. I need to probably clean it. And if you do need to clean it, I'll wipe it off with just like a Kleenex or a paper towel first. Sometimes the little pencil markings from all the appliques will get on there, or glue could get on there when you're doing your fusing, and it needs to get cleaned off. And I'll usually use that. You can use like a Windex or something too, or another thing is just like a little dish soap, just very mild dish soap. Wipe it all off and then wipe it down, and it cleans it really nice. So here we go. I'm sure you can see a little bit of that fish through here, but when I turn my light table on, wow, you see it's so much better. So you can see how helpful this will be. And I can actually see the numbers really well. Now, the only bad thing is when we're doing this, it makes it really dark, the colors, when I have my light table up all the way. So if I was doing this, not on a video tutorial, I would completely turn my light table up 100%. But because I'm doing this on my tutorial, I'm actually going to turn my light table down so that you are able to see what I'm placing on top a little bit better. And I can still see really well. So we're going to start our fish. So I'm going to grab all my appliques that are to do with the fish. Just grabbing them. I have them off to the side here. And we're going to start with fish A. Now, one of the things that I used to do when I didn't do lasers, I used to actually, hand cut everything until about maybe almost 10 years ago when I started doing laser stuff. So when I would have all these loose appliques that I cut, I would take them off to the side of my light table, and I would put them in numerical order. So I would have A1, A2, A3, all the way to A14 off here to the side in order. Helps me to, one, know if I lost anything or misplaced something or didn't cut something. And then I'm like, oh, I'm missing A5. Where's A5? Oh, here it is. So I don't have to go search for it later. But it also makes it go much faster. Now, with the lasers, you certainly can pop them all out and do that if you want to. I tend to like to just kind of keep them in the little sheets that they're in and pop them out as I need them. So I'm just arranging them. You can't really see, but I'm just kind of sticking everything off here to the side so that I can kind of see what I've got, so I can find them hopefully faster. And then I'm going to just look for, where is my A1? Now, again, if I were to have had them arranged on the side, I'd already know exactly where A1, we just go through fast. But I didn't do that for this one. So I'm just going to kind of look 1, 2, 3, 4, and go from there. So I'm going to peel off the paper on A1, and I'm going to go ahead and arrange 1 in place. A2, I gotta find it. Oh, here it is. So when you're popping these out of the sheet also, I just want to show you, they are basically, the way the laser works is it perforates this paper and fabric and glue. So it's tiny little holes. And when you go to pop them out, you just kind of tug on them and they just really pop right out. Now, once in a while, you might have a thread stick, or you might have a place that got a little funky or something, and you might need to use some scissors. And that is why I have my little thread scissors nearby, because occasionally that'll happen where like one little thread got real tough and it didn't want to let go, and then you need to kind of cut it and trim it. And it's better if you have one kind of tug on you to just go ahead and trim the thread versus pulling too much, because you can kind of damage them a little bit if you pull too hard. Okay, so I'm just moving along, popping these out as I go. A4. Oh, there's 4. Okay. This little dot, by the way, if you look on your pattern that says 9, that is one of the little eggs floating through there. That's an egg. Don't think that's the piece, because I almost thought that just now. I was like, what the heck is that doing there? But it's an egg. And I'm just kind of following the top of the fish. And if you bump yourself, you can straighten it back out. Okay, 4, 5. Now, here's one of the other things. A lot of the times, too, when I'm doing this, I haven't done this one. Gosh, I made this design in 2020, and I have a few threads sticking out. I'm going to trim those off. That happens sometimes, too. And so I was just like, I'm just going to start on it. I don't know. I don't remember where everything goes, but I'm just going to start on it. And I'll figure it out as other people would figure it out too. So if I'm like, where does that go? Well, that's my bad. Okay. So A4, A5. Oops. Let me find it. It goes up here. I'm doing this. This has got to be backwards. I grabbed B5. I'm sorry. I said B5. I want A5. Wrong one. Here's A5. I grabbed the wrong one. See, everybody makes mistakes. I certainly do. Okay. A5 is this red one. That makes more sense. And so on A5 also, I'm looking through this one to find the top of it. Sometimes it's hard to see. So what I'll do is I'll put my hand down to hold it and I'll flip it up and kind of get a look at, okay, here's the little jaggedy edge I want to follow. So when I kind of keep my eye on it, I actually can see it pretty well when I put it down. And so that makes it actually a lot easier to do. Sorry, I'm totally distracted. A5, A6, which has got to be A. Is this A6? No, this is this one. Where be it? Here it is. Oh my goodness. This is a terrible video tutorial. I don't know where anything is. I should have looked more ahead of time. I had it upside down. Oh, I thought there was a thread. Oh, there is a thread. Okay. Now this is another reason why, if you did have them all laid out, you'd know exactly where they were. I probably should have just done that anyways. That would have been faster. Maybe I should do that before we do B. Okay, A7. Which is, again, that little gray scales. A8, which is going to be in this green color. So I'm going to move this. I had this over there because I was just like, that is not it. Where is it? And then when I was looking at the paper, I was reading it upside down and I didn't see it. A9, which is going to be in this sort of textured green. Okay. So I'm following the bottom of his jaw there, and it will overlap just slightly with these other colors here. A10, which is here in this lighter kind of gray. Oh, and another thing, when you go to peel these off, I have a little trick that I do to peel the paper off. So what I do is, let me find my A11. Here we go. So what I do is first of all, we pop it out. You just kind of give it a tug. And then if you have any little threads, which some fabrics, my goodness, it's like some of them, like one color has all kinds of threads on it, and then the others, not at all. So it's funny how they're like that. They're all the same company, the same cottons and everything, but some of them are like that. So when oh my gosh, I just did it, and I think I need like coffee or something this morning. If you've watched any of my other video tutorials, you'll know that I'm not always so like spacey. What's wrong with me? Okay, I'm going to do it next, and I'm going to remember. A12. Yep, eyeball. Okay, here we go. So what I'll do, and then these little ones especially, it's helpful, is I kind of fold the applique over. And I don't know if you can see how the paper released and stays folded, but the fabric flips back. So I do that a lot when I'm peeling the appliques off. I will do that little fold, and then that way the paper stays in place. This one is the tiniest little piece, these little eyes. So I just sort of fold it over, and the paper stays folded, but the fabric pops off. Now, it doesn't always work the first time in the first place that you try it. Sometimes I'll have to fold a couple spots because it'll be like, man, it really wants to stick there. But that's something that I do a lot of the times to get that paper to come off. And then let me find my final piece. A14. A14 is in this little gray. We're going to do better on B. Should we pull all the pieces out and put them in order next to me? And then you can compare and contrast how fast I was. Okay, I'm going to move A over. Let's pop all the B pieces out. We're going to do it. So I'll show you how I did this before. And then you'll probably go, oh, why didn't you do that every time? Because you didn't know where the heck anything was. Okay, so what I'll do a lot of the times, if you want to do it this way, I'm just going to pop everything out and I'm going to start arranging them in numerical order off to the side here. So we had 1, that's 4, and this one is 8. So I'm just going to kind of put them out of the way. And then this stuff is just scrap. You can keep it if you want. You don't have to. You can get rid of it. This is B15. That's going to be way over here. B12. Pop that one out, get rid of that scrap. And I have a few little threads in here, which while I'm popping them all out, I'm just going to go ahead and clip them. Might as well have it nice and clean. Here's a B13. We're going to put it after 12. Might lose some of these, but hang on, let's see. I'm going to swim, fish. Swim you over so we can, oops, turned off my light. Put that back on. So we can see them all. Okay, here's a B6. Put that in there. B9. After B8, B2, after B1. Get rid of that. B11 before B12. B10 before B11. B20. Oh my goodness, we have so many in this guy. Okay. B14, B21, which I think might be the final piece, actually. I think that's the last guy. B16, another little thread sticking out there. I'm just going to snip that. B17, put that guy up here. B18 is this little eye piece, and I don't want to lose this little black eye piece, so I'm going to leave him in there. That's 19. There's 20. Hang on, move these all over. Here's 21, and remember I took this piece out. 1, 2, is this 3? No, this is 5. Oh, here we go. I forgot I have this piece over here. 7, 9, say, I'm going to put 9 up here, and I'm going to put 8 up here. I'm going to put 7 down here, 6. Put this guy. Some of them are kind of big, especially this one, B3. So now you can see how this could go a little faster with your arrangement. So if I had pre-cut all these myself and I wasn't using a laser kit, this is how I used to do it all the time. I would have all my stuff laid out and it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. This is 5. I don't know if you remember, I thought it was 5 for the other one. I messed up. This one has a thread sticking out of it. I'm going to snip that off. So 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. So now they're all arranged. So now when we go to put this guy together, I shouldn't be so mixed up all the time. Okay, so now the only thing is knowing where do they go. 1, 2, okay, let's start. So do that little fold over, peel it off, and put that one up there. B1, B2, fold over. B2, B3 is this big salmon skin. beautiful red salmon that you don't want to eat them when they look like this, though, I'll tell you that. If you are eating salmon, you don't want them to be this color. This is not good flavor here. This is I'm almost dead. That's why it's called finish line. You're at the finish line. He is almost done with his life. Made it to the spawning grounds. Okay, so now on this one, it's kind of hard for me to see where these lines are through there. So I'm going to flip it up again and kind of get an idea. Oh, okay, there we go. I see those. So now when I flip it down, I can see that line that I couldn't really see before because I just kind of keep my eye on that spot. And I can see a few of the others in here too, that it's like, okay, I see them. I see them. I can make sure that I put them in the right place. And if you need to, oh, and if you mess up and you don't put it in the right place, you can pick it back up. Nothing is permanently fused right now. This is just the point where we're basically, this is the point where we are not fusing anything. We're just sticking them onto the pressing sheet to make it one piece. And if you bump stuff, you can, you know, fix it. If I went, oops, you can put it back over. Or if this guy got off or something, you can put it back over. Okay, now let's put this B5. This is the one that I was like, what is happening here? I mislabeled it or I grabbed the wrong one. I don't know what I was doing. And I'm just going to lay it along the bottom. I'm not actually even worried about these little pieces that are sticking up here. I'm just kind of wanting to keep it lined up with the bottom edge of my salmon guy. Turn my light off. Okay. B6. Looks like we're getting into fins here. Which one? Well, I think it's one that I might not be able to. Oh, no, it's up here. Okay. 6. Whoop. Line up with the side. Oop. Again, you can lift them up and adjust them if you need to. 7. And I can't see that line so well again, so I'm kind of just lifting it up and it's like, oh, okay, it goes right here. And then I can kind of see now where it attaches there, or where that line is. It's funny, like your eye doesn't really see it, especially through the printed pieces that have lots of stuff going on them. But then when you kind of lift it up, it's like, oh, now I see the lines. And if you keep your eye there, it's like you still see them through the print. So I just find it really helpful to kind of do that lift up. But when you do it, make sure you keep a hand in place to kind of hold it while you lift so you don't move everything. Because, oh, look, I did move everything. I'm going to move that back. If you wiggle or bump stuff a little bit, that's okay too. I always tell people that nature's pretty forgiving in general. If your salmon, like say you're doing this and your female salmon has kind of shifted a little bit and you've got your whole male salmon done and you didn't realize that your female salmon kind of started swimming off a little ways, you can, if you remove this from the pressing sheet and you look at it and it's like, oh, that looks just fine. Well, then don't worry about it because you're not going to probably notice if your salmon is, you know, 2 or 3 millimeters off from my salmon. You might notice it if it was like an inch off from my salmon, but you probably won't notice it if it's just a few, you know, 1/4 of an inch or so. So don't feel like you have to make everything absolutely perfect. I always try to tell people that I don't encourage people being sloppy, but I just want people to understand that all of my designs are nature inspired, and nature isn't perfect, and nature is pretty forgiving. And if your salmon isn't exactly like my salmon, look, yours won't be because I just moved my salmon. Okay, so then that's okay because not every salmon is the same, right? They're not all identical to each other. And my salmon's fin right now wants to do weird things. There we go. Okay. Okay. 12, 13 is going to be up, I think, in his face here. Yep. So I'm just going to scooch this over a little bit now that I've got some space, just because it's a little easier for me to see, and maybe for you. Yep. Okay, so 13 is up here, up in his face, and it's actually like this dark shadow in his mouth. And it goes over that female one. 14. Now, all of these, because of the fact, so 14 is actually here, and it actually ends up getting mostly covered up by 15 and 17. And like I said, if you put something somewhere and then you feel like, oh, I don't think that that looks quite right. So 15, I'm following this little area right here. I can see the line of where that's supposed to be. Now, one of the other things I try to let people know is that if you're fighting something and if it's like, it's just going the wrong way, it's going the wrong way, that may be that you actually have your, I'm just checking, yeah, that you have your applique twisted off a little bit. So like for instance, this one is supposed to go way up there, and then I can see the spot in here where he meets, and then he's supposed to go way up here. So I was first putting it down where this looked like it was fine, but it was going way off like this. Now, my applique should fit just right. It's like the laser cuts, it's like this is just how it's supposed to be. So if for some reason yours is going off a weird way, that might mean that you've got it actually off center a little bit. And what you'll want to do is just pick it up, put this here, lay it back down. And as you notice, like with this one, it's right where it's supposed to be now. So if you're fighting the applique, you probably just have it laid out a little bit off. So lift it up, reposition it, and then try again. Okay, 16 goes through here. Yep, up a little bit more. 17. Now 17 kind of starts, you're going to see his face kind of finishing up here. I always hit that. My where my plugins are, I have to have this down in this corner, but I hit it all the time when I do that, and I wish my plugin was somewhere closer. Okay, now this guy again, I'm seeing the line there. I'm seeing the line here, and he has to come way up here, and he is, and he's going right underneath the chin, and he is. So yay, got him in the right place. Okay. And if you put it down and that wasn't working and it wasn't coming up here, again, pick it up, twist it a little, lay it back down, because he should be coming right up the jawline there, and he should be going right up over that nose part. Now, one thing I'm noticing on mine is this piece here is actually slightly off. I don't really want to pull that up because I got stuff on top of it. So if you ever have an applique where, like right here, I don't know if you can see, that's not a good because it's my same color. So you can see right here how this is sort of sticking out. Now, that's just because I kind of arranged it too far back and it gets hidden by most of these other things. If it bothers you that the jawline isn't going to be exactly straight, what you can do, you can leave it. Nobody's going to notice it. But you can also take, and you can always trim any of these that you want. I always kind of tell people with mountains. So look, I just cut that little bit off so it makes it smooth. You shouldn't have to do this with a lot of appliques, just so you know. But if you do, and you have a situation like that, this piece fits under things, it's kind of hard to see exactly where it fits under there. So if you have something like that, you can trim that off. And now it's nice and straight and it looks great. If I had left it, it would have looked perfectly fine too. Like, I don't think anybody would have noticed that there was anything off about that at all. But for people who are really picky and really, really don't like that, you certainly can do things like that. And what I've told people in the past too is, like, some of the mountain appliques, sometimes you have a mountain where you have snow on top and you have other colors. And when you're going to put the snow down, maybe one of the colors is peeking out, or you've got something laid out where it's like, oh, the top of my mountain isn't fitting perfectly how I want it, or because I put this piece down a little off, now this piece is a little off, and now the mountain snow sticking up, and I just don't like it. I've always told people, you can always trim them. You can definitely do that. Like, they're not meant to be trimmed. They're meant to be, fit just how they're supposed to, but there's always a little human error, and people sometimes don't always lay them out exactly perfectly. Obviously, I don't lay them out exactly perfectly every time either. So I try to let people know, like, don't feel like you can't do that if something really bothers you. I don't want you to be bothered by anything. Oh shoot. And you know what? After all of that too, I forgot I have this little piece here that actually covered that up. So that was sort of unnecessary, but I guess, see, I could have hidden that little part anyhow right there. But just so that you see that if you do ever have something like that, where it's like, mine didn't lay out perfect and I feel like this is sticking out, or this piece isn't straight, or this one, whatever it might be, you can always trim them a little bit too. If you think everything looks great, but for some reason my piece is off a little and this part is bothering me, you can always just trim it down a little bit. It's not going to hurt anything to do that. So, okay. So now I've got my salmon in place. So what I'm actually going to do now, get this out of the way for a moment. Get back to my instructions. So I arranged my salmon and prearranged salmons A and B. And now I'm going to lightly fuse and remove them from the pressing sheet. So I have an iron that turns off on me after 8 minutes, and I'm sure it's turned off on me. So I'm going to go ahead and put this off to the side while we move on to placing the water background onto the layout guide, making sure the salmon are, and I'm going to move on to the next step while I let my iron warm up, and then we'll fuse those salmon really quick. Just takes a few seconds. Okay, so again, skipping forward, the only thing I didn't do was lightly fuse those because my iron is sleeping. Actually, I guess I'll put these back in there, keep this in place. So now I'm going to take my background and I'm going to place the water background, that's your 10 by 19.5 piece, on your layout guide, making sure the salmon are swimming left. So why do I say that? Well, these salmon are swimming to the left, right? And this is the right side of this fabric. Now, you might not think that batiks have a right and left side, and a lot of them don't really, but you might notice on some of them, and this is one of those ones where we have a very dark background with a lighter print. And if you look on the back, for one thing, if I turn it over, my salmon are actually swimming the opposite way of these two guys. So that's one reason that I mentioned that, because it is a directional print. You want your salmon all swimming the right way. But you might notice, and I don't know how easy it is to see here, there are like these little dots of this dark blue that are showing through in this printed area here, versus this side where they're nice and clean, no dots. So on a printed batik, sometimes you won't notice this at all. But others, like this one, you do actually see these little dots of like kind of dark blue popping through where the wax was. And this is technically the wrong side. If you flip it over, you don't see those at all. So we don't want to see those little dots. They're unsightly. Actually, they're not so bad. But one of the other things is if you make sure your salmon are swimming the right way, you're going to have your right side facing up regardless. Okay. And I just heard my iron, so I'm going to really quickly do the iron part so I can let my applique cool for a minute. So, skipping back here, I'm going to have my iron on a medium setting. Now, my iron, this iron is so sucky. Like, I can, oh, it's a little bit hot today. I can go like this though, and it's really not that hot. So I often have my iron turned up hotter than I normally would. You know your iron, whether your iron runs hot, whether it's cool, whatever, but you want it kind of in the middle. You don't want it too hot, because what we're doing right now is we're just fusing these as one piece. We're not fusing as a final fuse to the backgrounds. We're just wanting to warm the glue up enough that they stick to each other. So this is the part that I find a lot of people do wrong. And basically, we don't need a lot of heat for very long. We just want to warm the glue up so they hold together temporarily. So here we go. We're going to just press it down, lift it up. Do not run it across. Press it down, lift it up, press it down, lift it up, press it down, lift it up. And if I feel it, it's like, okay, yeah, my appliques are warm. And that's probably about enough. I'm going to do just a little bit more because my iron's not too hot. Press it down, lift it up, press it down, lift it up, press it down, lift it up. That's it. Now, I want this to cool off for a few minutes before I try to remove it from that pressing sheet. So I'm going to stick it off to the side, and we're going to come back to the next step where I've laid my water background on the layout guide, making sure my salmon are swimming left, and I want to arrange the current, the riverbed, and all my rocks. So here's my little current. Just peel that off, the paper out of the way. Okay, so I'm just going to start over here, kind of place it down. This kind of goes up top. I want to lift it, move it. Oops, I moved it too far. Lift it up, kind of let them fall, and they just sort of fall very nicely where they're supposed to. Now, my current is slightly off on this side, and so it's slightly hanging over on this side. That's okay. I don't want to lift it up just to move it over that much because this is all going to be in the seam allowance anyhow. However, this little area over here, you might get some glue on your ironing board. So if you wanted to trim that, I would take bigger scissors. And this is another time where you can trim them a little bit. And I'm just going to trim them slightly off. You can always lift it up and rearrange it, but it basically looks like it's perfectly fine. It's just that it was teeny tiny bit off because I do try to make the appliques fit, you know, exactly across. But now it's perfect. I don't have to worry about any glue getting off. So there we go. Put that back in there to hold that down. Okay. So current, then we want to put our river bed, which is this rock applique. And this just goes right across the bottom. And I messed it up off of its center, but I'm not really caring about that because it just goes straight across the bottom. So, oops. Okay, so now I'll get it back on center for doing our rocks. And now we want to arrange all our rocks A through T. So here are all of my rocks. We have the dark black, black and gray ones and these kind of brown ones. And we're going to arrange them in alphabetical order. Now, again, you can pop them all out and stick them off to the side in alphabetical order and grab them one at a time and just start putting them on. Or you can just pop them out as you go. So I'm just going to pop them out as I go. Here's rock A. And I believe most of these pretty much go kind of going across this way. So A is right here. B is right next to it. There's way more black rocks than the brown ones. B. Find C. C and D are down here. Now they're pretty hard to see where they are actually. So you can look and reference your picture, or what I'll do sometimes also when it's something hard to see like this is, again, kind of lift it up and look and go, okay, C's about here. If you need to move it, like if you go to put your salmon on and maybe something's really off, which, I mean, they're rocks, they're not, it doesn't need to be perfect. But if something's really off and it really bothers you, oh, oops, I grabbed the wrong one. That one was not a D. That one was a P, which I read upside down. Then basically, stick this one back over here. Here's my little D. That looks like a P. They're lowercase. Basically, you're not fusing anything at this moment. So if you end up wanting to move something, you can pick it up and move it. You haven't fused everything. Everything is still very mobile. An E. So I'm just kind of estimating where it goes right now. And if I had my light table turned all the way up, it's still pretty hard to see the lines through there. So, oops, I'll turn it up a little bit, but actually I'll turn it off. I'm not even really able to see through it very well at the moment. So let's just turn it off so you can see what I'm doing a little better. F. And again, hold it down, lift it up, and kind of take a look at where it goes. And then just sort of try to position it in that same place. G. And you can move them later if you feel the need. another thing that I've sometimes done is I've also sometimes taken this and moved it up like this, and I've got it centered where it's at, and then I just kind of eyeball it like I'm going straight up from here. And you can do it that way too if you want. When it's an area that's hard to see, regardless of whether you have the light table under there or not. This is another way that sometimes I've done it, where it's like, gosh, it's really hard to see through print and print. And then on top of the dark colors. So that's another way, another little tip for doing your arrangement. Now, again, these are just little rocks. They're just extra little rocks just to give it a little bit more depth. J. So here and just kind of up here, and it's about in the middle. K. L. L's really big. And L is another one that if you kind of move this down here, you can put it like, basically you can see kind of exactly where it should be placed, just like right above that. So move it even down even more. It's like, there you go, perfect. M. N. Come on in. There we go. O. Some of these blend in so much in the background, it's like, well, if you're getting annoyed with these, you could just leave them off. I can't even see M and N. Okay. P. Now P is going to be really close to my salmon. So if you wanted, O and P, if you wanted, you could wait and actually put these on till after your salmon are on, or you can put them on and then when the salmon go on, if you feel like you need to adjust them, then adjust them. If they're totally off, and the P's the one I accidentally grabbed before that was in the wrong place. If it's like, oh, that's way off, then adjust it. So they're totally adjustable. There goes my iron again. I hate this iron. Wake up. I don't want it to go to sleep because I'm going to use it again. Okay, Q. Now again, because Q and R are right here in the corner, I'm just going to move this down and I'm just going to put Q, like, okay, it goes right there. R goes right in the corner. So I don't even have to worry about really positioning this one because it goes like right in the corner. And then S and T, where's S and T? Way up here. And it's right up by the edge. Oops. I dropped my little rocks. Okay, that's it for the brown rocks with S. And it just goes right under that. And then T. And that's it for those rocks. So really all we have left now is to put the salmon on and then all the little floating eggs everywhere. I have a little thread sticking up, so I'm just going to snip that off. Okay, so now that all my rocks are in place, we're putting our rocks. Now we're going to put salmon A and B, and then eggs 1 through 17. So I've got my little sheet of my little eggs, and I've got my salmon. Now, I ironed my salmon. I gave it, you don't need to give it that much time to cool necessarily, but you want to give it like about 30 seconds to a minute at least to cool down before you try messing with them and peeling them off the pressing sheet. And then sometimes when you go to peel them, some pieces might be sticking to the sheet. If you are finding that a lot of pieces are sticking to the sheet, you may need to apply a little bit more heat and let it cool down again before you try peeling it off. But I will be very gently kind of peel away from the pressing sheet, the body. And again, if something's sticking, you want to do it sort of slowly. Those guys came off great. So now I have my salmon all, I'm pressing sheets done. We don't need that anymore. Salmon all ready to go. And how much easier to do this when they're all in one big piece. Can you imagine trying to put that together through, through this all on its own individually? No way. I have a little thread. She's got like a hair on her chin. Gotta get rid of that. So does he. Come on now, guys. Clean yourselves up. You're on the internet. Okay, so now we're going to arrange it. Now, the nice thing is that your background, it's really easy to see the tops of these salmon. So I just usually kind of look at the top, those fins, make sure all the fins are going where they're supposed to, make sure the top of her head's going where it's supposed to, and then I just let the bottom go down. And there you go. And my little rocks, they look like they're in a pretty good place, so I'm not worried about them. I don't have to move them. And that's everything for the main pieces. Now, the very last thing that you want to arrange are all these little red eggs. So they're numbered 1 through 17. You will find on here, there is numbers 1 through 17. They're all circles. They're all about the same size. I didn't even bother numbering them because I don't really care if I put number 16 on number 2 or number 15 on number 8. It doesn't really make much of a difference. Some are slightly larger than others, but overall, I don't really care. I'm not that particular. So I'm just going to start arranging them. And some of them might be hard to figure out where they are. But I can see these ones that are floating, that I can see a few of them. And right now I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put them down on the ones that I'm spotting right off the top of my, not off the top of my head, but the ones that I'm able to spot easily. That's a better word. And then I'm going to move this out of the way and kind of see where some of the others are. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball where I'm putting them. So I'm just popping them out kind of one at a time, placing these down. Now, you're welcome to go ahead and number them all and place them exactly on their numbers. And you have fun with that. I just feel like they're all the same. Basically, they're all basically the same. This one has a little hair sticking out of it. I am going to clip that off. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time worrying about number 1 being on number 1 and number 2 being on number 2. I'm just going to worry about trying to place them where they're supposed to be, at least approximately, and not losing any of them because they are small. And if I do lose one and my thing only has 16 eggs and yours has 17, well, I'm going to say that's okay too. Because again, I'm not asking or not telling people to be sloppy. I'm telling people that it's nature and it's forgiving. Don't be so worried about it being perfect because I don't think there's really anything in nature that's 100% perfect. And if your eggs are in a little different placement, that's fine. If you don't want the eggs on yours, that's okay too. Okay, so now I'm running out of spots where I see the eggs. So I'm just kind of flipping them up and I see there's one on the back of him. Little papers. The paper that comes off can be so staticky and it like sticks to me. So where else did I see one? Oh, there's one down here on him too. And these eggs just, to me, they just kind of give you a little bit extra like action and movement happening. These little floaty eggs going on around. There's one right here on his body. A little easier to see. Let's see if there are any more over here that I want to worry about. Okay, so there's one down here between his fins. I'm just going to put it right there. Peel that up. And there's that one. Okay, so now I'm kind of getting to the middle point here. So we've got a couple down here in the rock area. Now, it's hard to see where exactly those ones are. There's so many layers there. But again, I can move this up. Oh, there's actually another one over here. So I just move that up so I can kind of gauge where those two are. Let's just put those two there. And then we have another one over here under her fins. That one, oh, it stuck to me. here. And then I'm actually, instead of like flipping this up and back and up and back, I'm actually gonna, oh, I missed one right there. I'm actually just gonna move it off to the side and kind of take a peek, because I'm obviously missing a few. I have 3 more. So I have my, move these out of the way. I have those 3 up there. I don't have number 11 up here. Did not put number 11 up there. So I'm just going to stick number 11 right up here. I didn't remember number 9 on her back. And looks like I got the 15 and 14. I got 16 on him. I got 20. I got 18, 17. Oh, there's 19 of them. I don't know where I missed the other one. There's one floating around here somewhere that I missed. 13, 14, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7. Oh, I think I missed 8. Did I? I did. I missed 8. And you know what? On mine, it shows up right in the mouth of this other guy floating in the background. So he's going to get number 8. How can I miss 8? 8 is my favorite number. My birthday's on the 8th. I've always loved 8s. Whoop! This little guy does not want to be a part of this design. Okay, I got him. Okay, number 8, right in the mouth of the buddy in the background. Okay, so everything is now arranged. Our center is finished. So what's the next step? We want to fuse everything well with steam. That is a very important part of using Steam-A-Seam. Make sure you are fusing everything well with steam. So let's go about that. Now, what if you don't have a steam iron? Well, guess what? My steam iron, I don't care for. One time when I first got it, I was steaming something and it decided to spit irony water all over my background. And I was so mad because it stained my background. So, and that's this iron, this guy who also shuts off after 8 minutes, makes me mad all the time. So I don't trust that iron. So I now use a spray bottle, and I left my spray bottle in my other room. Give me 1 second. I'll be right back. I'll run and get my spray bottle. Okay, I'm coming back. Okay, so if you have a reliable iron that steams, here's what you do next. First, before you apply the steam, we want to warm all this glue up and get everything kind of sticking to the background so that nothing moves when we go blast it with steam. Because when you steam, it is like a psh of air, right? That's blasting at this. And I don't want anything to like go flying off to the side. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take my dry heat, again on medium heat, and I'm just going to apply a little bit of heat and lift, apply and lift, apply and lift, apply and lift. And I'm basically doing this on every footprint of the iron size, all across the whole thing. And the reason, again, is to kind of get everything to sort of temporarily stay in place. So now that I've got that heat on there, now I can steam it. Or I can use a spray bottle, and that could be my steam, right? So if you have a steam iron that you trust, hold your iron about within an inch of the surface, hit it with steam for about 5 or 6 seconds. We want to get a lot of steam in there, a lot of moisture. And then once you've hit it with the steam, you're going to set the iron directly down on that footprint and let it evaporate with dry heat, all of that moisture out. That's what gets that glue to really melt and fuse in there really, really well. So if this was my steam iron, I'm going to do the sound effects. We're going to go footprint and leave it there. Count again to 8 to 10. Once you've done that, next footprint, blast her with the steam again. Once you've got that 5 or 6 seconds of steam, set it down, let it give that dry heat to evaporate that steam. I use my spray bottle almost always now. I used to have an iron that I loved and the steamer was awesome, but it died. It worked for like 10 years though, so that was great. Okay, I'm going to move mine over just a little bit because I don't have a big space here for my little travel ironing space. And I'm just going to spritz pretty heavily, like get some really good water on there. And now I'm going to just put, and I hear a little sizzle, and I'm just going to leave it there. And I'm going to, again, leave it there for about 8 to 10 seconds or so. While it's doing that, I'm going to spray another little area. And I'm going to lift it up. And I'm going to put my iron back on there. And I'm going to let it evaporate all that steam. Or all that liquid, I guess. All the water. And then I'm going to go to the next footprint. And if you overlap slightly in some areas, that's okay. The main thing that you want to watch out for right now is that your iron isn't too hot. And a telltale sign of that is that you're going to see, especially in lighter appliques like this piece here, you'll see these little dots that are the fusible. Basically, the fusible is a bunch of little dots of glue and like a web is what it looks like. So you'll start seeing sometimes these little dots if your iron is too hot. And basically what it's doing is that iron is so hot that the glue is basically frying, I call it. It's like it's not giving it a correct amount of heat to make it sort of bleed out and fill in the spaces between it. And it's just like staying right there. So if you're finding that you're seeing these little dots, that is an indication that your iron is too hot and you need to turn your heat down. So again, I'm going to go over the entire surface, all my appliques, every footprint of my iron with this method of getting that steam in there to really fuse everything well. Once I've done this, I'm also going to flip it over and I'm going to do the same process from the back. And the reason that I do that is because in some of these areas, like let's say in here, you have multiple layers of steam-a-seam. Like I have this one overlapping, this one overlapping, this one overlapping her, right? And she's even got like red in here and stuff. Like there are many layers in some of these places. His eyeball, there are at least probably 4 layers behind his eyeball. I want that steam to reach and that fusing, I want that to reach all the way to the background because what it ultimately is holding on to is this background fabric. So to make sure and ensure that everything has gotten steam, everything has gotten fused all the way to my background, if you flip it over and you do it from the back, you're reaching into those layers from the other side of them, and you're definitely going to get that steam and that security all the way through with your fusing. So that is something that I always do. I'm not going to do it now just because this is kind of a boring step to watch me do forever and ever. I've almost got the top done here. So, but at home, that is something that I highly recommend that you do. Fuse the front, flip it over, fuse again from the back. And now that we've got our center finished, this one is done except for your borders. So on this one, I don't go through doing the sewing. And also once you've got it seamed, you can go ahead and now you can iron over it. And you shouldn't have to worry about any of these appliques peeling up on you. They should be very well fused all together, and you're good to go. So now that this is finished, what do I need to do next? Well, if I'm going to make this big quilt, I'm going to stop right here because I need to finish all my others and then I sew them all together and then I sew on my borders and everything and finish it up. If I'm doing the individual, which is the way the kit here comes, is for the individual, I'm going to now sew my borders on. So we're going to say it has a note here and there. If you're doing the 6 block, what you're supposed to do. If you're doing the individual, I always do 1/4 inch seams. All my stitching is always a 1/4 inch seam, and you're going to follow sewing your borders on. Sides first, then top and bottom. Sides first, then top and bottom for both inner and outer borders. I usually press all my seams away in borders. Do your quilting, do your binding, and if you have any need for any help with or questions about quilting and binding, I do have on my tips page in my website, I go through and I have some photos of how I usually do quilting. I tend to use clear thread, and I will not stitch on the appliques. I stitch on the background and I just sort of echo quilt all the way around the outside, just sort of keeping within about 1/8 of an inch of the appliques all the way around. I just follow around the applique. I don't often stitch on them themselves. Now this fusible, and this is a wall hanging, so it's probably not going to get washed a lot. This fusible is very, very strong and very secure for things like wall hangings or decorative table runners that don't get a lot of washing. If you are going to put any of these on a quilt, that's a little bit of a different story, and I do then recommend putting some stitching on your appliques using matching colored threads. The reason for that is because quilts get a lot more love, they get a lot more washing, and the adhesion here is essentially glue. I mean, glue will break down regardless of how strong it is over time, especially with a lot of wear. So for this, I will not stitch on them. I have quilts I have wall hangings and I have table runners that I've made. I've been doing this since 2007, and even the ones I made in 2007, you can go through and you can try to peel these up and they are stuck. They will stay. Like I'm using my nail here to try to peel, and they're going to stay in place, and they will even on those ones too. Now they've been moved around a lot. They've been up and shown at different stores and then brought down, taken to another place, shipped somewhere else, rolled out, rolled back up, put, away. And they have held up very well. If it's something like a quilt, you want to stitch on it. If it's going to be a wall hanging or a table runner, just stitch around. Or I've seen people do amazing things with quilting, and you can definitely add your own design elements, doing decorative stitching, whatever you want to do. Okay, so I hope that answers questions. Oh, and if you need help with binding, I do have a tutorial that is photos one by one of how you go ahead and do a binding. It's also on my tips page on my website, so that can help you out if you need a little help with that. Also, your local quilt shops, always take advantage of those folks. They're awesome, they're amazing, and they all have a lot of knowledge when it comes to basic quilting and stitching and things like binding. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope that you will be interested in doing this kit or one of my others. And I will be doing more soon. So thanks so much for joining me.